Scarborough, England's oldest seaside resort. Scarborough has managed to keep up to date while preserving its historic past, making for an enchanting combination of a traditional seaside resort set against a background of old-world elegance. Scarborough is known to have been a port as far back as Roman and Viking times, and with the discovery of an Iron Age settlement probably even before that. Every year, Scarborough attracts thousands of visitors by virtue of its wonderful setting, excellent shops, fairground attractions and beachfront stalls selling everything from locally caught seafoods to ice cream and candy floss. It has many old-world pubs, theatres and restaurants. King Richard III was reputed to have stayed in this house on Sandside. It's now a restaurant. The Grand Hotel personifies the Victorian love of large and highly decorated buildings with its turrets, pinnacles, towers and ornate masonry. The Grand's 12 floors, 52 chimneys and 365 rooms, representing the months, weeks and days of the year. Built on top of the cliff, it has a commanding view over the South Bay. Faced with a steep climb from the beaches, the Victorians not only built paths that zigzag up the side of the cliffs, but lifts that run from top to bottom as well. This one, alongside the Spa, was built in 1875 and was the first in England. The new Spa complex not only has this delightful open-air bandstand, but the Vitadome Cafe and a classic theatre of extraordinary beauty. Opposite the Vitadome is the Ocean Ballroom. Specifically designed to resemble an ocean liner, it continues to delight its many guests. It seems incredible that the start of Scarborough's development into the country's first seaside resort can be attributed to one woman, a mad man, and this trickle of turgid water that oozes out of the sea wall and disappears into the sands below. It was in the 17th century that her mistress Elizabeth Farrer discovered the mineral waters in Scarborough and its apparently miraculous cure for common ailments. The town council quickly exploited the attraction, and the spa town of Scarborough was born. 40 years on, a Dr. Whitty had the novel idea of sea bathing. This quickly became fashionable, and England had its first seaside resort. The original spa was destroyed by fire in 1876. The new spa opened in 1880 and forms the basic structure you can see today. Alongside these flower beds is the Rotunda Museum. This deceptive piece of Victorian architecture houses a wide range of exhibits, from a scold's bridal to the remains of a prehistoric man. What's most remarkable is the TARDIS-like interior, with its magnificent wall and dome decorations, and its unique and beautifully constructed circular display cabinets. The Crescent is also a typical Victorian development, large, elegant houses with architectural styles from around the world. Developed in the mid-19th century, it now consists of a combination of private houses and small hotels. On the seaward side of the Crescent, two of the larger houses have been converted. One into Scarborough's art gallery. The other house, called Wood End, is a museum of natural history. Wood End, formerly the home of Lady Louise Sitwell, has many architectural features, one being an outstanding two-story conservatory extension, which was built by Lady Louise to house her collection of exotic trees, plants and birds. The birds, it said, found the music so attractive they would fly around the heads of the guests as they danced. Also located in the Crescent is the Art Gallery. It houses a fine collection of paintings that have been purchased, donated or loaned to the town. The gallery often runs special exhibitions. This one, entitled The Shipping Forecast, is by Brighton artist Mark Power and contains a powerful combination of images and sounds. At the town end of the Crescent is this piece of modern sculpture by Colin Wilburn. It was carved from a tree killed by Dutch elm disease. Scarborough has an astonishingly diverse and colourful history. If you don't want to use the TARDIS to go back in time, then the Millennium Experience, located on the quayside, might be the answer. It explores 1,000 years of Scarborough's history in a modern and graphic way, the adventure beginning with a journey back in time on the Time Express.
Well done. You've just taken your first steps backwards in time. Your first steps into this epic adventure. The true and amazing story of Scarborough.
Leaving the train, you enter a typical street in Scarborugh, complete with flagstones, wattling walls, and a wood turner and his wife hard at work. The building was originally a multi-storied warehouse, its height making this centerpiece of a complete medieval hall possible.
The man explained the plans to the king is his master mason, Master James of St. George. He's an expert on castle design and has been helping Edward work on his castles in Wales.
Magnificent though the hall may be, being a serf was not just hard work, but downright dangerous. No such thing as health and safety then.
Crossing my very chest! Hold on, sir, I pray you, damn blast that master mason for this boss!
There are many, many more everyday historical scenes to be experienced. The Millennium explains the story behind the spa and other seaside attractions that could be found in Scarborough throughout its colourful history.
It's food rationing. People are reduced to eating the harbour rats.
During the siege and storming of Scarborough Castle by the Roundheads, the parliamentary cannons were concealed in St Mary's Church and were fired through its windows. The constant bombardment inflicted a lot of damage to the castle's keep. The remains of the arched windows can still be seen in the grounds of St Mary's Church. It's also here in the graveyard of St Mary's Church that Anne Bronte was laid to rest in 1849. Scarborough is divided by a natural headland which forms two separate bays, north and south. Both have lovely sandy beaches. It was off these shores that the tunnies were fished for some 30 years. The world record catch went to Mitchell Henry in the 1930s. He caught a tunny off the coast of Whitby, weighing in at 851 pounds. Today, people are more concerned with conservation, and at the far end of the North Bay is the Sea Life Centre. One of several located around the UK, their primary aim is to provide an environment where sick and injured creatures from the sea can be convalesced before being released back into the wild, and in doing so provide visitors with an excellent opportunity to see them close up in as near their natural environment as possible. This Sea Life Centre has a large seal rescue unit where sick, injured and orphaned seals are nursed back to full health before being released back into the sea. It provides fascinating opportunities for the visitor to observe the seals in their natural element. Large glass panels set into the sides of the pool, adding a further dimension. Although the seals are regularly fed, there's still fierce competition during feeding time. All these seals are grey seals, with the exception of Bruno, who's a common seal. For various reasons, Bruno is unsuitable for release into the wild, so he'll spend the rest of his life being cared for here. Bruno is also quite timid, and to ensure he gets sufficient food to keep him fit and healthy, Julie tries to encourage him to take fish from her, without too much success. But by moving around the pool, she eventually succeeds. The centre often has very young seals, and despite their natural curiosity, they do need to be kept away from the main pool and the general public. These three babies, called Tex, Sophie and Spice, are in a small enclosure tucked away behind the main pool. In the entrance to the Sea Life Centre, visitors are immediately greeted with a rock pool, and it's from here that the adventure begins. In this tank are some of the shark family that can be found in the UK coastal waters. They might only be small sharks, but they're sharks nonetheless. This tank also contains sharks, but today there's an added attraction, for in this string of fish eggs can be seen the beginnings of life for one small shark. The shoreline tanks contain several varieties of fish and rays. The rays are naturally inquisitive and often swim on the surface to get a better view of the strange and excited creatures that can be seen around the edges of their world. For those inquisitive creatures of the humankind, there are regular talks throughout the day on a variety of sea life. Monitors showing the fascinated visitors in great detail what the speaker is demonstrating. People of all ages come to marvel at the sights, sounds and smells of the sea in all its immediacy. At the heart of the centre is the ocean tank with its spectacular walk-through tunnel. When you're beginning to tire with all the walking and your feet start to complain, the centre has a modern cafeteria where you can take a quick cuppa or a full meal to revive those flagging spirits. On one side of the cafeteria is a dedicated children's play area. Here, the children can let off steam, but still remain in view of Mum and Dad. To one side of the Sea Life Centre, a small tributary of the River Derwent runs into the sea. Because of its sheltered position and size, it makes an ideal place for smaller children to play in safety. It's also used a lot for picnics and lunch breaks by school parties and families. There's even an inn perched on the side of the stream, making a welcome sight for walkers coming down off the Cleveland Way. Behind the Sea Life Centre is Scarborough's miniature railway. These small trains run between Scalby and Peaceholm Park during the holiday season. The track runs parallel with the beach for almost a mile, giving a fine view of the whole of the North Bay before swinging inland towards its destination, Peaceholm Park. As the track emerges from the tunnel, the train runs alongside one of Peaceholm Park's lakes. The lake provides the usual boating facilities and is a part of a 4.5-acre fun park called Kinderland. Designed for children up to the age of 12, it has many activities, all of which are included in the entrance fee. There are two ways to get to the top of these slides. One, the steps. The other via climbing frames and rope bridges. Much more exciting. And here Mum shows how it's done. One of the most popular rides in the park is the water splash, a great favourite of kids of all ages. A 100 yards from here, on the opposite side of the road, is Peaceholm Park's Japanese Garden. The Japanese theme is very evident, with boats shaped as swans, as well as the more conventional canoes and rowing boats. It even has an island complete with waterfall. Throughout the season, there are regular special events, one of which is the water skiing demonstration. It's thought that water skiing started here in Scarborough using a plank of wood. False teeth were also invented in Scarborough. I wonder if there's a connection. Here's one of the audience trying his hand at water skiing. Be warned though, don't get too close to the edge of the lake. And here's the dramatic grand finale. All in all, great entertainment.
Well done, Joe. Three-man pyramid. The clowns and skiers are going to come out on the chest now to wave goodnight to you all. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves.
Another regular feature with model boats and lots of action is the reenactment of a naval battle. This attraction is thought to have been performed here since 1927, when there were captains in the boats. Now it's all radio controlled. There's even an aerial attack.
Here's the first of this little sortie, closing in on the battleship. And now, closing in.
With loads of bangs and audience participation, the crowds love it. In the evening, the park takes on a quieter, more serene atmosphere, when the park is lit with hundreds of Japanese lanterns. If, however, all you want to do is lie in the sun, but you have the children to think of, why not bring them here to Atlantis? Atlantis is an open-air swimming centre, with not one but two massive slides high enough for the most adventurous. It's well supervised, though, in a firm but very friendly way. This is the Rapids, where children, well, you can work it out for yourselves what happens here. The main swimming area has a wave machine in the shape of a ball, and very effective it is too. And Mum? She's still soaking up the sun. It was in the 1930s when Professor Adsaid produced a report commissioned by the Borough Council on how best to preserve and enhance the natural beauties of Scarborough in order to attract holidaymakers in the long term. It's probable that Atlantis, the miniature railway at Scalby Mills, the development of Peace Home Park, the people shelters on the North Bay Cliff, and the Art Deco Corner Cafe were all constructions in line with his innovative proposals. This remarkable engineering feat, called Marine Drive, runs around the headland between the North and South Bay and is a spectacular road in many respects. Apart from taking 10 years, 10 months and 10 days to complete, it was the demise of 4 companies who went bankrupt building it. It was finally opened around 1908. It's a long haul from the North to the South Bay, and this is where these open-top buses come to the rescue. Leaving every 5 minutes, they run from here in the North Bay, along Marine Drive and the seafront, to the spa in the South Bay, where they turn round and come back again. A nice feature is you only pay once to travel on them for the whole day. Being open-topped, you get marvellous views as you go along. Albert Road is known locally as Chain Hill, because it's thought that convicts built it. Opposite Chain Hill, a north pier was constructed, opening in 1869. It only lasted until 1905, when a violent northerly gale all but destroyed it. It was never rebuilt. Sheltering underneath the cliff is a putting green, and the keen-eyed visitor might see the large boulder partway up the slope with a doorway and windows hewn out of it. Popular legend describes it as the home of a hermit called Hairy Bob, although no one's quite sure who Hairy Bob was. As the bus rounds the headland, the South Bay and a fun fair is revealed, guaranteed to raise the interest of the children. Scarborough has been a fishing port since records began. The Viking raiders settled here in 966 AD under the leadership of an Icelandic Viking called Thorgil. He had a nickname of Skarti, which meant hare lip, and this is where the town's name is derived from. There's another side to Scarborough that can only be seen from the sea. The Regal Lady, operated by Scarboroughian Tom Makin, provides round trips to the North and South Bays, with occasional cruises as far north as Robin Hood's Bay and Whitby, some 15 to 20 miles up the coast. Slipping out past the lighthouse and into the South Bay, the full impact of Scarborough from the sea unfolds. Many people prefer to remain on deck to appreciate the journey fully, but it's advisable to take some warm clothing with you. Even on a sunny day, it can get quite cool once you clear the harbour. The whole of the domineering headland and North Bay can be seen from offshore. There's a lounge on board that serves warm drinks or beer, as well as offering live entertainment. Our return finds visitors on the quayside enjoying the sun and sea as we slip back into harbour. It's quite possible that some of these were acquainted with the Regal Lady during the Dunkirk evacuations in 1940, as she played her part in that most memorable event. Scarborough Castle sits imposingly on top of the headland, dominating the entire surrounding area. Within the walls of the castle, evidence of human endeavour can be seen dating back to Roman times, when there was a beacon placed here to warn the garrison at Malton of marauding barbarian raiders. Judging from the size of the base, the beacon is thought to have been over 30 metres high. The seaward side of the tower's perimeter wall has long since fallen into the sea. Further building remains can also be seen on the same site. This is the Well of Our Lady. In medieval times it was thought to be miraculous, as the water always stood within 3 metres of ground level, putting it some 197 metres above sea level. It was also thought to have had healing properties, probably because it contained the same minerals as the spa waters which made the town famous. Other ruins on this site date from around 1000 AD, this small chapel dating back to the Reformation period. There's more evidence of erosion on the south curtain wall, where there was once a postern tower. This too has long since fallen into the sea. On the same wall is a small gate leading to the southern steel battery. It was probably used to mount surprise sorties on any besieging raiders in the town below. Over the generations, much building, rebuilding and alterations were performed. This red brick part of the wall was rebuilt after the Jacobite rebellion in the mid-18th century, being demolished again in the First World War by a sea bombardment from German battlecruisers. The magnificent inner keep was surrounded by a ditch. At first glance, it may not look very difficult to climb, but bearing in mind there would have been hundreds of heavily armed men defending it, This child, even if he were a man, would not have survived for very long. In line with the trends of the day, the keep had its own water supply, and for defensive and prestigious reasons, the entrance was on the first floor. Inside, the keep's commanding views over the sea approaches can be readily appreciated. As in times past, with over 16 acres of ground on the headland, fairs, jousting and tournaments are still held. This group demonstrates life during Viking times with a combination of music and other crafts. They also put on a demonstration of the type of weapons that were in use and how they were used to such devastating effect.
Weapons! Step! 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 Get it!
Did you get him? Are you all right, young man? We didn't want to fight.
Local school children have added their own piece of history to this site with these 20th century time capsules. From a medieval arena to a modern one, the TT track on Oliver's Mount. With meetings running throughout the year, this one is for the complete spectrum of motorbikes, from 125cc to the mighty 1000cc Yamahas and Triumphs. It's attracted enthusiasts from all over the country. They're not even put off by the weather.
Stretching away. Way clear.
Come on, Dino!
With an on-site restaurant, spectators and contestants can stop for lunch. In the pit, preparations for the next race are already underway. If you prefer the more tranquil outdoors, then perhaps mountain bikes are more your scene. This old railway track has been converted into a cycle track and runs from Whitby, 20 miles to the north, down through Robin Hood's Bay and Cloughton, before emerging at the Gladstone Road play area behind Safeway's supermarket in Scarborough. At present, there are 2 places en route where visitors can hire mountain bikes. This one is at the old railway station at Cloughton, just 5 miles out of Scarborough. It also has a lovely cafe and garden area where you can take time out to relax. The other one, called Trailways, is located just outside Whitby at Stainsacre. This is also in an old railway station. Trailways have produced a nice little map describing the route and sights along the way. The ride is safe and very gentle, meandering through the quite beautiful countryside, mostly running parallel with the Cleveland Way and the coastline. The views and scenery can be quite breathtaking in places and tranquil in others. Hayburn Wyke Inn emerges halfway between Cloughton and Staintondale. It's here that the cycle track and the Cleveland Way meet. Legend has it that this inn, like many other buildings along this part of the coast, has a notorious past, in that behind the fireplaces there were smugglers' tunnels running down the cliff to the sea. A little further along the coast at Staintondale is one of Yorkshire's hidden gems, the Shire Horse Farm, a veritable paradise for people who are fond of horses. It's run by Tony Jenkins, a man whose passion for his horses positively radiates. The farm has everything from mighty shires to the tiny but very powerful pit ponies. Helped by his assistant Claire, Tony demonstrates the intricacies in preparing the shires for ploughing.
Products, they're very old ones. These are what we call blinkers in this area. They are commonly called blinkers, but again they're called winkers, mods, looks, different parts of the world and country give them different names.
What? What?
You've just got to go to your mouth.
With the exception of a lunch break, there's something happening throughout the day. The farm also has a small museum of farm machinery. With a children's play area, aviary, and pigs as well as the horses, the children can let off steam in relative safety. Next to the children's playground is a covered area where, in the event of rain, the wet weather programme can be run. There's also some fascinating reading to be had. These small booklets chronicle Tony's adventures when he bought and renovated the farm. These and other gifts and souvenirs are on sale in the restaurant and shop. The programme is aimed at entertaining and educating the visitors, with child participation positively encouraged.
Sophie, to swim.
When the professionals get a bit stuck, there's always someone to offer a helping hand.
If you just get a piece of grass there and you run along with the grass, they'll just come along. I'm not joking, I did that to one of the horses. Stop!
Which one?
I want to bring that one down.
Which one?
That black one here.
The black one?
Yeah.
Told him to sort this to get some coming. So they told him to you can't hold the other one.
Do you not remain which one you get?
Right, there's one on that side, no, one on this side, please.
Go on that side.
And hold on to there. Right.
Looking after Nancy.
Right then, just watch your feet, everyone behind me. Right then, out the gate. Right, everybody follow me onto the yard.
Shut me up.
The other, always walk nice and wide around the back legs, okay? Because if these ponies step back, you always stand on your toes. Now the last thing you ever brush on a pony is the tail, alright? The last thing, don't brush it first. Now to brush a tail, right, if you've got the brush in this hand, stand on this side of the pony. If you hold the brush in this hand, stand on this side. And what you do is you brush like this with your foot near her foot, downwards. And this goes for every pony in the world, not just ours. Wait, two people per pony, please. Brush for you. There you go, you brush this side. She's alright. That's it, don't stand right behind the pony, Heather.
Tony is always happy to talk to visitors about the history of his farm and the surrounding area.
Property, but of course. Yeah, well, people are always, asking what the relationship is between, or if there is one, between the Shire horses and the old war horse, which of course is a genuine one because the Normans brought them over. And these, without the modern new straps, we believe to be a pair of incredibly well preserved medieval spurs. And the purpose of them, and the rowels, the long rowels, and I have catalogued this from some medieval battle books that I have. The purpose of them was to get underneath the armour of the horse, into the belly, and spur them on. And the reason for that, of course, was the fact that these horses were so grossly overburdened with armour and with armour plate that they were, in wet conditions, they were practically unable to move. The only way the knights could get them to move, regretfully, was to gouge them under the belly with the rowels and make them move.
All in all, a thoroughly delightful way to spend a day around these gentle giants called Shire horses.
1, 2, 3, yeehaw! One at a time, just stand back. We got 10 ready. 1, 2, 3, yeehaw!
About 5 miles away, nestling in Harwood Dale, is the Granary Hotel and Tea Rooms. Its owners, John and Linda Simpson, are developing the farm under the Countryside Stewardship Scheme. This scheme incorporates a number of conservation management techniques that bring back the more traditional way of farm management. This has led John to plant meadows with wild flower seeds added. With the reintroduction of wetlands and scrub, as well as a medium-sized pond which has been stocked with fish. These are only some of the schemes that will be introduced and developed over the coming years. So if you want to know how a dry stone wall is constructed, this is the place to find out. Many of the smaller farm animals are kept in pens, where they can easily be seen. One of the farm's working dogs had just had pups, which were also on display, much to the delight of some visiting children. The farm is surrounded by scenic woodlands and countryside, making it ideal for walking. There are numerous Forestry Commission plantations in this area, some of which are open to the public. This one, in Dalby Forest, has many features including lakes, forest walks, and car parking areas with plenty of space for picnics and games. In Langdale Forest, there's an off-road driving centre where instruction in the art of dirt track and hill descents is given. It's great fun.
So you can move past Murphy there. So there we go, up here on your left-hand side, up into the forest.
The whole area has something to offer everyone, from relaxing and just taking in the fresh air to delightful villages such as Thornton le Dale, with its quaint craft shops. This stained glass centre in Killerby Lane at Caton is owned by Valerie Green. Valerie has a workshop on the premises and is happy to let visitors watch her at work. She's the fourth generation of the Lazenby family specialising in design, restoration and manufacture of stained glass and leaded lights. These windows and stained glass are made in the same way as 1,000 years ago, and with prices ranging from £3,000 to £3,000, there's something here for everyone. There's also a large area where the finished articles are displayed and sold. The conservatory is used to serve the centre's visitors with light refreshments, with the added attraction of a large garden and water feature. As another sunny day awakens, families flock to Scarborough's Golden Sands, where children and families can play all day without spending too much well-earned brass. And the only time you'll be taken for a ride is on these old favourites, the beach donkeys. On Shrove Tuesday in Scarborough, the pancake bell is rung. This is the sign for most of the population to meander down to the south foreshore to skip. This custom has been carried out for about 200 years, although no one quite understands why the focus of this public holiday should be skipping. There's a wide variety of accommodation in Scarborough, from the majestic Grand to large Victorian guest houses, even the original 1784 Corn Windmill, with its contemporary toy museum, provides chalet-style accommodation. Scarborough, the place with an ambience of historic charm and scenic glory. And as the regal lady slips back into harbour and the evening lights glitter and gleam on the rippling sea, the night revellers begin to emerge.